friends, welcome back. Let us continue with the discussion with the contemporary theories of leadership. Today I am going to talk about some other aspects and recent theories of leadership in terms of servant leadership style, authentic leadership style, responsible leadership style and mentoring. I will start first of all with servant leadership and what it entails. This kind of leadership is marked by going beyond the leader's own self-interest and instead focusing on opportunities to help followers grow and develop. No matter what, every kind of leadership entails that the leader thinks and moves beyond his own self-interest. But in what manner any leadership style tends to focus on the employees is very important, because every leadership style has its own orientation to consider employees as an important asset of the organization and then focus on the organizational outcomes. So, if we are talking about servant leadership style, this leadership style focuses on serving the need of others and focus on its outcomes for the well-being of followers. When we talk about servant leadership style, the leader is more concerned about the well-being and growth of the employees and then about the outcomes. Why? Because according to servant leadership style, the leader considers employees as the most important asset of any organization, and considering their well-being is an important aspect to be taken care of at workplaces. So, servant leadership avoid using power and emphasizes more on persuasion. The servant leadership is less coercive and focus on the development and well-being of the followers. So, characteristic behaviors include that a servant leader is a patient listener, he or she empathizes with the followers, persuade for the right action that they should take, accept the stewardship and actively developing followers' potential. So, they invest lot of time and energy in the followers to unleash their potential, and that potential is again used for the growth of the followers and well-being of the followers. So, what are the effects of servant leadership? So, the impact has been studied in form of high levels of commitment to the supervisor. There is increased self-efficacy, that is belief in oneself that one can achieve the goal with his own ideas and vision. There is perception of justice, which all are related to organizational citizenship behaviors. Why justice? Because when any follower is focusing the followers, that means more interpersonal relationship is being maintained, where it is not only about providing appropriate and complete information to the followers, but at the same time maintaining interpersonal relationship adds more emotional content between the follower and the leader, that leads to perception of justice and again leading to organizational citizenship behaviors. That is the discretionary behaviors which are performed by any employee, but at the same time not rewarded by the formal reward system. So, it is an individual discretion to help his or her employee. The second impact of servant leadership is that increases the team potency. When the leader is focusing personally on every follower to unleash their potential, so the team members develop a potential within themselves and they have that confidence that their skills are over and above of the other employees in the organization. So, this automatically enhances high level performances. And third, that servant leadership is also associated with focus on growth and advancement, which in turn is associated with high levels of creative performance. This is the outcome in process, that when the servant leader is focusing completely on the followers itself, that means it is leading to the personal advancement of the employees, and which is again associated with creativity and innovation. So, more space and platform is given to the followers by the servant leader to unleash their potential and finally enhancing their creative performances. The next is authentic leadership. Authentic leadership style is completely based on the ethicality of the leaders and the followers. They believe in their own value system and they are more open to work on their own values and beliefs. The followers consider themselves to be ethical, and the primary quality of authentic leadership is trust. So, when the leader is very true and honest, then definitely trust is built between the leader and the follower, and the leader share information, encourage open communication and stick to their ideals. As a result, people come to have faith in them. So, again, when an authentic leader is focusing on the followers by sharing information in a very open and candid manner, not only maintaining relationship, but they are sticking to their ideals based on openness and ideas, then definitely followers tend to develop trust with the leader and people have more faith in them. So, research indicates that authentic leadership, especially when shared among top management team members, create a positive energizing effect that heightened firm performance. So, this develops a confidence between the leader and the followers. There is an aura of energy in the environment, that there is so much of confidence that followers tend to believe and have a high level of trust on the higher authorities and the leader, that whatever information and decision has been taken and shared, that is absolutely ethically correct and true to themselves and to us. This is something which is felt by the followers within organization. Therefore, we can say that this kind of leadership, that is authentic leadership, is a promising way to think about ethics and trust in leadership, because it focuses on the moral aspects of being a leader. So, the leader is completely working on the ethical aspect in terms of right and wrong, right information to be shared and correct action to be taken in order to keep the whole organization function optimally. So, leaders who treat their followers with fairness, especially by providing honest, frequent and accurate information, are seen to be more effective, because that information to and fro is correct. So, the action and decision that has been taken or implemented is also correct. So, it has long term impact in terms of building a trusting work environment. Some related concepts of ethical leadership are humbleness, which often exhibit as part of being authentic. When more trust is there, humbleness automatically comes into function. Authentic leadership is also a model of humility and help followers to understand the growth process for their own development. Therefore, leaders who are rated highly ethical tend to have followers who engage in more organizational citizenship behaviors and are willing to bring problems to the leader's attention. Why? Because when there is openness in terms of trust, ethicality, understanding of right and wrong, so more problems can be resolved in a very lucid and easy manner. So, because there is openness between the leader and the follower. So, this tends to reduce interpersonal conflict. So, this is another advantage or impact of authentic leadership style, that when the leader is authentic and the followers are authentic, then problems can be resolved more amicably and easily, that tends to reduce interpersonal conflict. Now, what is the significance of authentic leadership style? If the higher authorities desire their organization to succeed, then even from the top level, every executive has to maintain that moral tone for an organization, and they need to set high ethical standards, because when the high topmost authorities are not ethical, they cannot set example, they cannot set precedents of ethicality, right, wrong, humility and trust and faith among other members that come into hierarchy or the system. So, they have to demonstrate that their behavior is ethically correct, and they encourage and their behavior is encouraging more integrity, which can be more rewarding, and at the same time have to learn to avoid abuse of power, such as giving themselves large raises and bonuses while laying off employees. So, again it is all about that setting a moral tone which sets a true or trustworthy environment within the organization, and where encouragement is given to integrity and discouragement goes to avoidance of using power in terms of availing bonuses or large raises at their own end. So, research review found that role modeling by top leaders positively influenced managers throughout their organizations to behave ethically and fostered a climate that reinforced group level ethical conduct. So, it is not about that just being ethical, it is about setting a tone, modeling ethical behavior where justice climate is prevailing, and at the same time perception of justice is also experienced by the followers and the managers. The findings suggest that organizations should invest in ethical leadership training programs, especially in those organizations where ethical regulations and standards are missing, and teach cultural values, because where any manager or employee who takes multicultural assignments, who are working with multicultural work teams, then they tend to understand the tone of ethicality or morality in a way, so that the sentiments of the other employees are not hurt. So, this is the utmost significance of this kind of leadership style, where ethicality moves not only to the manager level, to the organization level, but it also moves to multicultural work teams level. Next is responsible leadership. This originated from social relations and ethical theories and a leadership style that took place in social interaction process developed by Mark and Pless in 2006. So, responsible leader is a negotiator, a democratic negotiator, or he or she is a decision maker where he is not only thinking about shareholders, the responsible leader is also thinking about the best interest about the stakeholders. So, it is not about only thinking about shareholders, but about the stakeholders who are at the receiving end. Therefore, responsible leaders build and withstand profound relations among all the stakeholders by using the powerful forces of protection, acquisition, connection and understanding. It is not only about protecting one's own employees, it is about protecting the shareholders, taking care of the stakeholders at the same time and understanding that what one particular decision can have long term impact on both the segments, that is on three segments: employees, stakeholders and shareholders. Therefore, when we talk about responsible leadership style, the leader puts equal responsibility on all the aspects of the organization and makes a justified decision through rational analysis of the interests of the stakeholders for sustainable development, trust building and green action choices. So, green action choices is the buzzword when we talk about responsible leadership, because when we are talking about responsible leadership, it is not only about taking care of the employees, taking care of the environment, taking care of the enhanced performances and organizational consequences, but it is more of taking care of the stakeholders, more of taking care of the shareholders and more of making green choices. Now, green action choices such as saving paper, reducing energy consumption, making recommendations and helping colleagues engage in environmental productive behavior. So, it talks about more of corporate social responsibilities where it is not about people, it is about environment, it is also about at the same time profit. So, it is about people, profit and environment. So, responsible leadership is a more complex and diverse leadership style than any other forms of leadership. The critical difference between other form of leadership and responsible leadership is scope, value, society, environment and positive change. So, no other leadership style till date have talked about environmental changes or taking responsibility of the environment, but yes, a responsible leader engages in modeling a behavior, in modeling organizational setup where organizations are taking utmost care of the environment and bringing positive change in terms of environment, in terms of reduced consumption of energy, saving paper or recommendations and helping colleagues engage in environmental protective behaviors. So, outbound leadership, that means old and previous leadership styles exaggerate the influences, but ignore the surrounding environment and overlook the interest of stakeholders. On the other hand, the responsible leadership style focuses on complex stakeholder leader relationship. So, it is also not about ethical leadership, it is about establishing a relationship between the leader and the stakeholder, maybe to certain extent with the shareholders, but most prominently, most importantly with the stakeholders, because stakeholders are at the receiving end. So, whatever has been given by the organization to the environment, the stakeholders will bear the consequences. The next is mentoring. It is another form of leadership style. Earlier it was considered as a kind of training program, but now it has been considered as a specific training program where a mentor is a senior employee and sponsors and supports a less experienced employee who is known as a protege. So, mentors, they are considered as good teachers because they have lot of experience and association with an organization. So, any employee who is new to the organization, they tend to look forward towards those experienced employees who have spent lot of time with the organization and understand the whole system, and they feel comfortable in communicating their own feelings about the organization or any particular situation. So, people naturally move to mentor and can more easily communicate with those with whom they most closely identify. Traditional informal mentoring relationships develop when leaders identify a less experienced low level employee who appears to have potential for future development. Now, it is also a process that any employee is new to the organization will identify the least experienced employee and will try to associate that least experienced employee with any mentor in order to unleash his potential for future development. So, protege will often be tested with a particularly challenging assignment. He is being assigned any task which is challenging, and the mentor will develop the relationship in order to make him understand how to take up the challenging task and what are the nitty-gritties and intricacies of high performance, and informally and showing the protege how the organization really works outside its formal structures and procedures. So, structure anybody would understand, but in every aspect of structure how the organization functions, that understanding is only fostered by the mentor to the protege. So, this is how mentoring takes place. So, maybe it is one-to-one connection, a mentor and an employee who is new to the organization and inexperienced, and how the mentorship offers that kind of experience to the protege when he is very much new to the organization. They also present ideas clearly, listen well and empathize with protege's problems. So, mentoring relationships serve both career functions and psychological functions. So, mentors tend to understand the new employees, that is proteges, in a more detailed manner, while understanding their psychological needs, while understanding their issues and problems at workplaces and how they tend to resolve them. So, on the slide there are some career and psychological functions of a mentor. For instance, when we talk about career functions, so the mentor tends to get the protege challenging and visible assignments in order to unleash and develop more potential. They coach the protege to help develop his or skills and achieve work objectives. They provide exposure to influential individuals within the organization. A new employee would never understand that who is more influential, but any mentor can give him direct understanding of individuals who are very influential and how and to whom to approach them. Sponsoring the protege, nominating him or her for potential advances or promotions, and acting as a sounding board for ideas, the protege might be hesitant to share with the direct supervisor. So, because a mentor is a patient listener, he gives more time in mentoring the protege. So, is more comfortable in sharing his opinions, ideas, beliefs and problems with the mentor more easily than the direct supervisor. So, these are the career functions that any mentor would perform for protege. And the other is psychological functions. So, counseling the protege to bolster his or her confidence, sharing personal experiences with protege, providing friendship and acceptance, and acting as a role model. So, when any protege or any new employee who has been assigned with a challenging task, so that gives him some jittery experiences. So, mentor there will come into play to develop or bolster his confidence in order to give him self belief that he can perform the job better. He shares more personal experiences of the new employees and has more acceptance and friendship with the protege, and ultimately they act as a role model. So, these are the functions which any mentor as a leader would perform. The only difference is that in mentoring or mentorship there is one-to-one connection. As soon as that employee becomes well versed with the system and organization and his functions and performances, the organization tend to associate another protege with the same mentor, and again the whole process of overhauling starts on. So, this is how mentoring takes place at workplaces. So, these are some different forms of new leadership styles in terms of responsible leader, authentic leader or servant leadership style or mentoring, which come into play as per the situation. So, we are through with this discussion. We will talk more about leadership in our next session. Thank you so much.